Still grieving fresh from my wife's funeral, I went to my brother's daughter's first birthday party. In the middle of the celebration, he said with chilling coldness, "My daughter is your wife's daughter, so I'm entitled to half of your $800,000 house." He even showed me her will. I held back my rage and barely smiled, but what he didn't know was about to destroy him, because my wife had been much smarter than any of us could have imagined. I still can't believe I'm writing this. It's been 6 months since that birthday party, and every time I remember it, I feel the same mixture of pain and rage that pierced my chest when Mike dropped those words on me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. But I better start from the beginning, because this story is more twisted than anyone could imagine. Sarah died on a Tuesday morning, pancreatic cancer, just 4 months from diagnosis, until she faded away in that hospital bed that smelled of disinfectant and despair. We had been married 32 years, sharing everything: bills, worries, Sunday football games, fights over the remote control. 32 years, believing I knew her better than anyone in the world. The funeral was on Saturday. Mike, my younger brother by 8 years, was there with his wife Rachel and little Emma, who was 11 months old then. He looked devastated, crying more than I was even. He hugged me after the burial and said, "She was like a sister to me, Robert. I don't know how you're going to go on without her." What an actor the son of a bitch turned out to be. The first week after the funeral was hell. The house felt empty and cold. Neighbors brought food. I didn't eat. Friends called to check how I was doing, but I just wanted to be left alone. Sarah had been the one who kept everything in order. She paid the bills, she remembered birthdays, she knew where everything was. I was just a guy who worked in insurance sales and came home for her to tell me about her day. Mike came by often that first week. "You can't stay alone," he'd tell me. "Come have dinner at our place." Rachel would cook those casseroles I loved so much, and we'd play with Emma in the living room. The little girl was identical to Sarah when she was little, according to the photos my mother-in-law had. Same green eyes, same mischievous smile. "It's incredible how much she looks like Sarah," I commented to Mike once. He just smiled and said, "Yeah, it's incredible." Now I understand that smile. Emma's birthday was 3 weeks after the funeral. I didn't feel like celebrating anything, but Sarah always said that promises to children were sacred, and I had promised Emma I'd be at her first birthday, so I put on the cleanest shirt I had and went to Mike's house. They had invited the whole family. My parents were there, already in their 80s, my aunts, some cousins I hadn't seen in years. The house was full of pink balloons, and there was a huge table with food. Emma was in her high chair, all dressed like a princess, smearing her hands with the banana puree Rachel was feeding her. At first, everything was fine. We talked about normal things: work, weather, how my parents were doing. My Aunt Carol hugged me and said Sarah would be proud to see me there, supporting the family. Mike seemed nervous, but I thought that was normal. Organizing a party is stressful. After Emma blew out the candle, well, after we all blew it out for her because obviously she didn't know how to do it, Mike asked us all to sit in the living room. He said he had something important to announce. "As you all know," he began, "Sarah was very special to our family. She was like a sister to me, and I know for you all, she was like another daughter." My parents nodded. My Aunt Carol wiped away a tear. "That's why," Mike continued, "I think it's time for Robert to know the truth." My heart started beating faster. I didn't know what was coming, but something in Mike's tone made my hair stand on end. "Robert," he said, looking me straight in the eyes, "Emma isn't just my daughter, she's also Sarah's daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the tick-tick of the wall clock, the sounds Emma was making playing with her toy. I looked around and saw my family's faces. Some looked surprised. Others looked like they already knew. "What are you saying?" I asked, though I was already starting to understand. Mike pulled a paper from his shirt pocket. "Sarah left this," he said. "It's a letter where she explains everything. Emma is her biological daughter. Robert, I was just the means she used to have her." The words hit me like blows. I took the letter with trembling hands. The handwriting was definitely Sarah's. I knew it better than my own. "Dear Robert," the letter said, "if you're reading this, it's because I'm no longer with you. I know what I'm about to confess will hurt you, but you needed to know. Emma is my daughter. Mike and I had a relationship 2 years ago. I couldn't give you children. We tried for so long. And when the doctor told us it was impossible, something broke inside me. Mike was going through a rough patch with Rachel, and one thing led to another. It wasn't love, Robert. It was desperation. When I found out I was pregnant, I asked him to take responsibility, as if she were his. Rachel never found out the truth. Please forgive me. I love you and will always love you. But Emma is my blood, and I hope you can love her as I love her. Sarah." My world collapsed. 32 years of marriage. 32 years believing I knew my wife. And it turns out she had cheated on me with my own brother. And not only had she cheated, she had a daughter with him. I looked up from the letter. Mike was watching me. And for the first time I saw something in his eyes that wasn't compassion. It was triumph. "There's more," he said, and pulled out another paper. This one was more formal, with stamps and signatures. "Sarah made a will before she died. Since Emma is her biological daughter, she has the right to maternal inheritance. That includes half of the house you shared. That's $400,000, Robert. I think it would be fair for Emma, being a minor, to have her share kept in an account under my name." The rage rose up my throat, like bile. My brother, who had cried at the funeral, who had consoled me, who had eaten at my table for years, was asking me to give him half of my house, the house where Sarah and I had lived our entire married life. But I said nothing. I couldn't. I was in shock, surrounded by my family, with Emma making little sounds in her chair. I just nodded slightly and said, "I need time to process this." Mike smiled. "Of course, brother. Take your time. But you know the papers are in order." Sarah made sure of that. That night I went back to my house and couldn't sleep. I stayed awake until dawn, reading that letter over and over again, trying to find something that would tell me it was fake, but it wasn't. I knew Sarah's handwriting. I knew her way of expressing herself. She had written that letter. But there was something that didn't add up. Sarah had been sick for the last 4 months. She had spent most of that time in the hospital, or sleeping at home, because of the medications. When would she have had time to make a will? And why had she never mentioned anything to me? The next day I called the family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, who had helped us with buying the house and other paperwork over the years. I told him what had happened. "Robert," he said, "that sounds very strange to me. Sarah never mentioned wanting to change her will. In fact, the last time I spoke with her, about 6 months ago, she told me that everything should go to you if she died first." I asked him to investigate. I wanted to see that will with my own eyes. While I waited for news from Mr. Henderson, Mike called me every day. At first it was subtle. "How are you, brother? Have you thought about what we discussed?" But after a week it became more insistent. "Robert, I need to know when you're going to start the paperwork. Emma needs that money for her future." One afternoon he came to the house without warning. I was in the kitchen drinking coffee and trying to organize Sarah's papers that she had left on the bedroom desk. "Hello, Robert," he said, entering as if the house were his. "I came to see how you're doing." He served himself coffee without asking and sat at the kitchen table, the table where Sarah and I had breakfast together for 32 years. "I found something interesting," he said, taking an envelope from his pocket. "More letters from Sarah. It seems she wrote quite a bit before she died." I opened the envelope with trembling hands. There were 3 more letters. In one, Sarah explained that she had started the affair with Mike because she felt lonely, because I worked a lot, and came home tired. In another, she described what the pregnancy had been like, how she had to pretend in front of Rachel that she was happy for her. In the third, she talked about Emma, about how every time she saw her she felt a special connection. "Where did you find this?" I asked. "Sarah gave them to me before she died," he replied. "She told me to give them to you when the time was right." Something didn't add up, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. "Mike," I said, "I need you to be honest with me. Does Rachel know that Emma isn't her biological daughter?" Mike shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "No," he admitted, "and I hope it stays that way. Rachel has suffered a lot from not being able to have children. Emma has saved her from terrible depression. If she finds out that she's not her biological daughter, it's going to destroy her." "But if Emma is Sarah's daughter," I said, "wouldn't Rachel have the right to know?" Mike looked at me with those cold eyes I now recognized. "Robert, brother, don't complicate things. What matters is that Emma is well taken care of, and for that she needs her inheritance." That night I called Mr. Henderson. He had news. "Robert," he said, "there's something very strange about that will. The signatures match, but there are inconsistencies in the dates. Also, I found something else. Sarah did make a will, but it was 3 years ago, and in that will she leaves everything to you. This new will is dated 2 weeks before her death, but according to hospital records, Sarah was sedated those days for pain. She couldn't have signed anything." My heart raced. "What are you saying?" "I think someone forged that will, Robert, and if so, it's a serious crime." I asked him to keep investigating, but to be discreet. I didn't want Mike to find out there were doubts about the will. The following days were terrible. Mike came to the house constantly, increasingly aggressive. "Robert, this is taking too long," he'd tell me. "My parents also want to know when you're going to do the right thing with Emma." One afternoon, he brought Emma with him. He put her on the living room floor and let her crawl while he pressured me. "Look at her, Robert," he said. "Look at those eyes. They're just like Sarah's. Don't you feel anything when you see her?" The truth is, I did feel something. Emma was a beautiful child, and every time I looked at her, I remembered Sarah when she was young. But it also made me terribly angry to think that this creature was the result of my wife's and my brother's betrayal. "Mike," I said, "why did you wait until after the funeral to tell me all this? If Sarah wanted me to know, why didn't she tell me before she died?" Mike tensed up. "She didn't want to hurt you while she was alive," he said. "She thought it would be easier if you found out afterward." "But don't you think it's strange that she wrote so many letters about this and never said anything to me directly?" "Sarah was like that, Robert. She was always better at writing than talking. You know that." He was right about that. Sarah always left me little notes when she went on trips or when she wanted to ask for forgiveness after a fight, but something still didn't add up. That night, after Mike left, I stared at the letters. I read them over and over again, trying to find something that would tell me the truth, and then I saw it. In the second letter, Sarah mentioned that she had started the affair with Mike last summer when we went together to buy Mom's birthday gift, but my mother's birthday was in March, not summer, and besides, I remembered that day perfectly. The 3 of us had gone together, Sarah, Mike and me. They hadn't been alone for a minute. In another letter, Sarah wrote about the afternoons we spent at the downtown hotel while you worked. But Sarah worked as a secretary at a school and got off at 4 in the afternoon. I sold insurance and was usually at the office until 6. There was no way she could have had free afternoons to meet Mike without me noticing. The more I analyzed the letters, the more inconsistencies I found. Details that didn't match reality, dates that didn't add up, events that hadn't happened as described. The next day I called Mr. Henderson again. "Doctor," I said, "I need to ask you a very specific question. In the will Mike showed me, does Sarah mention that Emma is her biological daughter?" Yes, he replied. It specifically says that Emma is her biological daughter and therefore has the right to maternal inheritance. And did that seem normal to you? There was a pause. Actually, Robert, no. Sarah had never mentioned to me that she had a daughter, and I had known her for 15 years. Also, when we drafted her first will, she specifically told me that she regretted not being able to have children. Would it be possible to do a DNA test? Of course, but you would need a sample from Emma and a sample from Sarah, and since Sarah was already cremated, what other options are there? Mr. Henderson thought for a moment. You could take the test yourself. If Emma is Sarah's daughter, she would also be your biological niece. The test would show that relationship. That afternoon I called Mike and told him I wanted to spend time with Emma, get to know her better if she was going to be part of my family. He was thrilled. Robert, I knew you'd understand, he said. Emma needs her Uncle Robert in her life. We agreed that the following Saturday, they would come to lunch at my house. I would take the opportunity to get a saliva sample from Emma without them noticing. But first I had to do something else. I needed to better understand the relationship between Sarah and Mike. So that night I went to the bar, where Mike and his friends used to hang out on Fridays. Robert greeted Carlos, one of his lifelong friends. How are you, brother? I'm so sorry about Sarah. I sat with him and ordered a whiskey. After a couple of drinks, I started asking subtly about Mike. Carlos, I said, did you know that Mike and Sarah were very close? Carlos looked at me strangely. Close how? I don't know. Like they talked a lot, saw each other often. Carlos laughed. Robert, Mike always complained that Sarah was very unfriendly to him. He said that every time he went to your house, she treated him like he was a nuisance. Are you coming to eat for free again? She'd tell him. Mike hated going to your house. Because of that, my heart stopped. Are you sure about that? Absolutely sure. Mike always said that Sarah had it out for him, that he never understood why you got stuck with the family witch. Carlos realized what he had said and turned red. Sorry, Robert, I didn't mean to. Don't worry, I said. Keep telling me. Well, the thing is, Mike always complained about Sarah. He said she was controlling, that she didn't let you go out with us, that she always found a way to ruin his plans when he wanted to spend time with you. The last time we talked about this must have been a few months ago, when you were at the hospital with Sarah. Mike said he hoped that after all this you could go back to being the Robert from before. I left that bar with my head spinning. If Mike hated Sarah so much, how was it possible that they had had an affair? And how was it possible that she had written such loving letters about him? Saturday Mike came with Rachel and Emma. Rachel looked tired, but happy. Emma was bigger now, already walking while holding onto furniture. Robert, Rachel said, I'm so glad you want to be part of Emma's life. She needs family, and you're the closest connection she has to Sarah. Those words hurt my soul. Rachel had no idea what her husband was doing to her. She thought Emma was her daughter, and she was raising her with all the love in the world. During lunch, I took advantage of a moment when Mike was in the bathroom to talk to Rachel alone. Rachel, I said, did you notice anything strange about Mike during your pregnancy? She looked at me confused. Strange how? I don't know. Nervous? Distant? Rachel smiled. On the contrary, Robert. Mike was over the moon. He said he couldn't believe we were going to be parents after trying for so long. He spent all his time talking to Emma in my belly, buying baby clothes. I had never seen him so happy. And Sarah? How did she behave during your pregnancy? Rachel's smile faded a little. Well, Sarah was weird. At first she got very excited when we told her, but then she became distant. She stopped visiting us, didn't want to talk about the baby. I thought maybe it made her sad, because you two hadn't been able to have children. Every answer from Rachel confirmed my suspicions. Sarah hadn't been excited about the pregnancy because it was her daughter. She had been sad because it reminded her that she hadn't been able to be a mother. During lunch, I managed to get a saliva sample from Emma with a swab that I discreetly saved. I told them there was something in her mouth and I was going to clean it for her. That same afternoon, I took the sample to the lab that Mr. Henderson had recommended. They told me the results would be ready in a week. While I waited for the results, Mike increased the pressure. He called me every day, sometimes more than once. "Robert, it's been more than a month since the birthday. My parents are starting to ask what's happening. Dad says if you don't resolve this soon, he's going to have to intervene." "Intervene how?" I asked. "Well, brother, if you don't want to do the right thing voluntarily, we're going to have to go the legal route, and that's going to be more expensive and more complicated for everyone." The threat was clear, but I knew I had to wait for the DNA results before making any move. One night, Mike came to the house with my parents. All three sat in the living room like it was an intervention. "Robert," my father began, "Mike told us everything that's happening. We understand this must be difficult for you to process, but you can't let Emma suffer because of your pain. That girl is family," my mother added. "She's Sarah's blood, and Sarah was like a daughter to us. You can't turn your back on her daughter." Mike stayed quiet, but had that satisfied smile that I now hated with all my soul. "Dad," I said, "I need more time. This is very complicated." "What's complicated about it, Robert?" my father asked. "Sarah left you a letter explaining everything. She has a legal will. Emma is her daughter. End of story." "Did you see the letters?" I asked them. "Of course," my mother replied. "Mike showed them to us. Very painful to read. Poor Sarah must have been suffering so much keeping that secret." I realized that Mike had been showing those letters to the whole family, building his version of events before I could question anything. After they left, I sat thinking about everything that had happened. Mike had planned this carefully. He had waited for Sarah to die to start his act. He had fabricated letters and a fake will. He had manipulated the whole family to be on his side. And worst of all, he was using his own daughter Emma as a piece in his dirty game. Because I was already sure that Emma was the biological daughter of Rachel and Mike, not Sarah. The inconsistencies in the letters, the testimonies of his friends, Sarah's behavior during Rachel's pregnancy, everything pointed to the same thing. Mike was lying. But why? Why invent such a lie just for money? The answer came to me a few days later, when I ran into Jorge, Rachel's older brother. "Robert," he greeted me. "How are you? I'm so sorry about Sarah." "Thanks, Jorge. How's Rachel doing?" Jorge sighed. "Complicated, actually. Mike lost his job a few months ago, and they're going through a very difficult financial situation. Rachel had to go back to work, and she's exhausted taking care of Emma and trying to maintain the house. Mike is desperately looking for work, but can't find anything." Everything started to make sense. Mike had no job, had debts, and suddenly saw the opportunity to get $400,000 by inventing a lie about his dead sister-in-law. It was despicable, but it had a perverse logic. Finally, the DNA test results arrived. I opened them with trembling hands. The kinship test between Robert Johnson and Emma Johnson indicates that there is no biological uncle-niece relationship between the examined subjects. Emma was not my biological niece. Therefore, she was not Sarah's daughter. Mike had lied about everything. But I couldn't just go and confront him with the results. I had to be smarter than that. I had to find a way to unmask him in front of the whole family, the same way he had humiliated me in front of everyone at Emma's birthday. I asked Mr. Henderson to prepare all the necessary legal documents. I wanted to have everything ready for when the time came to act. I also hired a private investigator to find out more about Mike's financial situation. The results were worse than I imagined. Mike owed 3 months' rent, had credit card debts, had taken a loan using his car as collateral, and wasn't paying it. He was on the verge of bankruptcy. The investigator also got me information about the letters. There was a business downtown that specialized in forging documents. For $500, they could imitate any handwriting. The owner remembered a man who looked like Mike, who had come 2 months ago with samples of a woman's handwriting, saying he wanted to play a prank on his wife. I had all the evidence I needed. Now I just had to plan how to use it. I decided the perfect moment would be my mother's birthday, which would be celebrated in 2 weeks. The whole family would be there, including Rachel. It would be the perfect opportunity to unmask Mike in front of everyone. Meanwhile, I kept playing the role of the hurt but willing brother to do the right thing. I told Mike I had decided to accept the situation and wanted to organize a family meeting to formalize everything. "Robert, I knew you'd understand," he said, euphoric. "Emma will be so grateful when she grows up." "Yes," I replied, "I'm sure she'll understand everything perfectly." The week before my mother's birthday, Mike pressured me to sign the papers as soon as possible. "Robert, brother, I don't understand why we have to wait until Mom's birthday. We can resolve this today." "Mike," I said, "this is very important. I want the whole family to be present when we make Emma's inheritance official. She deserves for everyone to know that she's being recognized as Sarah's daughter." Mike couldn't argue against that without seeming suspicious, so he agreed to wait. The birthday arrived. My parents had organized a gathering at their house. The whole family was there. My aunts, my cousins, Mike with Rachel and Emma, and some close family friends. After dinner, I asked for everyone's attention. "As you know," I began, "Mike told me something very important a few weeks ago, something about Emma and Sarah that changes many things for our family." Mike smiled, thinking I was finally going to announce that I was going to give him the inheritance. Before making anything official, I continued, "I wanted to investigate a little, because it's a very delicate situation." Mike's smile faded slightly. Mike showed me several letters that Sarah supposedly wrote, confessing that Emma was her biological daughter. I took out the letters and put them on the table. He also showed me a will where Sarah left half of our assets to Emma. Rachel looked at me confused. "What are you talking about, Robert?" "Mike didn't tell you, Rachel. According to him, Emma isn't your biological daughter. She's Sarah's daughter, the result of an affair they had while I was working." Rachel went pale and looked at Mike. "What is Robert saying, Mike?" Mike started sweating. "Robert, it wasn't necessary to tell Rachel. We had already talked about that." "Oh, we had talked?" I asked. "When did we talk about lying to your wife about who her daughter's mother is?" The atmosphere tensed. The whole family was staring at us, not understanding what was happening. "Mike," I continued, "you also told me that Sarah had made a new will before dying, leaving half of my house to Emma, $400,000. I took out Mr. Henderson's papers, but it turns out there's a small problem with that will." Mike stood up. "Robert, I don't know what you're trying to do, but this isn't the place." "No, Mike," I interrupted, "this is exactly the place, because you decided to make your announcement in front of the whole family at Emma's birthday. Now I'm going to make mine." I took out the DNA test results and put them on the table. "This is a kinship test between Emma and me. If Emma were Sarah's daughter, she would also be my biological niece. Do you want to know what the result says?" Mike was white as paper. "Robert, please. It says there's no biological relationship between Emma and me, which means Emma is not Sarah's daughter. She never was." The silence that followed was even deeper than the one at Emma's birthday. Rachel had stood up and was looking at Mike with an expression I had never seen on her face. "Mike," she said with a trembling voice, "what's happening?" "I also investigated the will," I continued, not giving Mike time to invent another lie. "It turns out the dates don't match. According to medical records, Sarah was sedated by painkillers on the days she supposedly signed this will. She couldn't have signed anything. I took out the private investigator's report. And this is the most interesting part. A downtown business specializes in forging documents. The owner perfectly remembers a man who looked a lot like Mike, who came 2 months ago with samples of a woman's handwriting, saying he wanted to play a prank on his wife. Mike started backing toward the door. "You don't understand anything. I needed that money. We're ruined. Emma needs a secure future." "We're ruined?" Rachel shouted. "Why didn't you tell me anything? And why did you invent this horrible lie about Emma?" "Because I knew Robert wasn't going to lend me the money," Mike replied, with all the desperation coming out in his voice. He was always the perfect brother, the one with the nice house, the one married to the perfect woman. Why did he have to have everything and me nothing? My father stood up, furious. "Mike, what have you done? How could you invent such a lie about Sarah? How could you defame your sister-in-law's memory? Besides," I added, "you were lying to Rachel about her own daughter. Emma is her biological daughter. You confirmed it yourself, without realizing it when you told me she looked like Sarah. But Emma looks like Sarah because Rachel looks like Sarah. They both have the same green eyes, the same features. Emma is yours and Rachel's daughter, and you were willing to destroy that for money." Rachel started crying. "Mike, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to Emma? She is my daughter, our daughter." "Rachel, please, let me explain," Mike began. "There's nothing to explain," my mother said, with a coldness I had never heard from her. "You've lied, you've forged documents, you've tried to defraud your own brother, and you've questioned the paternity of your own daughter. What kind of man are you?" Mike looked around, seeking support in some face, but found nothing but disgust and disappointment. Even my cousins, who had always been close to him, were looking at him like he was a stranger. "I just wanted the best for my family," he murmured. "You lied about everything," I told him. "You had the letters forged, the will too. You invented an affair that never existed. Sarah hated you, Mike. All her friends knew it. She always complained that you came to eat for free and that you didn't let her spend time alone with me." "That's not true. Carlos told me, Mike. He told me about all the times you complained about Sarah, all the times you said she was controlling, that you hoped that after she died I could go back to being the Robert from before." Mike collapsed into a chair. He could no longer keep lying. The evidence was overwhelming. "How much do you owe, Mike?" my father asked. Mike took a while to answer. $120,000, he finally murmured. Rachel covered her face with her hands. "My God, Mike, how did we get to this?" "I lost my job 6 months ago," Mike confessed. "At first, I thought I was going to find something quickly, but nothing appeared. I started using credit cards to pay bills. Then I took a loan. Everything kept accumulating." "And why didn't you tell me anything?" Rachel cried. "Because I was ashamed. Because I knew you'd be disappointed in me. Because I didn't want you to think I couldn't support my family. You preferred to make me believe that my daughter wasn't my daughter," Rachel said, with a mixture of pain and rage that broke my heart. "You preferred to invent that your dead sister-in-law had an affair with you. Do you realize how sick that is?" Mike didn't respond. He was crying now, but it was too late for tears. My Aunt Carol, who had been quiet all this time, approached Rachel and hugged her. "Dear, Emma is your daughter. She always was. She always will be. Don't let Mike's lies make you doubt that." Rachel nodded through tears. "I knew Emma was mine. I felt it here." She touched her chest. "But when Mike showed me those letters, I started doubting everything. I started wondering if there were signs I hadn't seen." "There were no signs because there was nothing to see," I told her. "Sarah never had an affair with Mike. Sarah never had a child. Emma is completely yours, Rachel." My father approached Mike. "You have to leave this house," he told him. "I don't want to see you anymore." "Dad, please." "No," my father interrupted. "What you did is unforgivable. You not only tried to defraud Robert, but you defamed Sarah's memory. That woman welcomed you into her home for years, fed you at her table, and you repaid her by inventing lies about her after she died. Besides," I added, "forging documents is a federal crime. You could go to prison for this." Mike went even paler. "Robert, you're not going to report me, are you? We're brothers?" I looked him in the eyes. This man who had cried at my wife's funeral, who had consoled me, who had eaten in my house, who had called me brother while planning to defraud me. "Mike," I said, "you stopped being my brother the day you decided to invent that lie. I'm not going to report you, but only because of Emma and Rachel. They're not to blame for what you did. But you have to disappear from my life," I continued. "I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want you to talk to me anymore. And if you ever try anything like this again, I swear I'll make you pay for everything." Mike nodded, defeated. He knew he had lost everything: his family's trust, his wife's respect, the relationship with his parents, all for $400,000 that were never his. Rachel approached me with Emma in her arms. "Robert," she said, "I'm so sorry about all this. I'm sorry Mike put you through this after losing Sarah." "It's not your fault, Rachel," I told her. "You're the victim in all this, just like me." "Can we still be family?" she asked. "I know I have no right to ask you this after what Mike did, but Emma loves you very much, and so do I." I looked at Emma, who was smiling at me, with that smile that reminded me so much of Sarah, not because she was her daughter, but because she was Rachel's daughter, who had always looked like Sarah. "Of course we can still be family," I told her. "Emma is my niece, whether Mike continues to be my brother or not, and you were always like a sister to me." Mike left that night and never returned to my parents' house. Rachel stayed. She needed the family's support to process everything that had happened. The following days were difficult for everyone. Rachel had to face the reality of Mike's debts, his unemployment, the lies he had been telling her for months. My parents were devastated by what their youngest son had done. I was trying to process not only Mike's betrayal, but also the fact that I had doubted Sarah, even if only for a moment. A week after my mother's birthday, Rachel came to visit me at home. "Robert," she said, "I need to tell you something. I found more of Mike's lies." She sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Mike had threatened me weeks earlier. "Mike didn't lose his job 6 months ago," she told me. "He was fired over a year ago for stealing." My heart sank. Stealing what? Money from the cash register. His boss had been watching him because the numbers didn't add up, and he caught him red-handed. He fired him on the spot and told him he wasn't going to report him only because he had worked there for many years. "Why didn't he tell you?" "For the same reason he didn't tell me about the debts. Shame." "But Robert, that means he's been lying to me about everything for over a year. He left the house every morning as if he were going to work, and I had no idea he didn't have a job." "Where did he go?" "I don't know. I suppose looking for work, or maybe just driving around to kill time. The point is, he lied to me every day for over a year." Rachel started crying again. "Robert, I don't know what to do. I don't have money to pay the debts. They're going to foreclose on the house, and Emma needs stability." "Where is Mike now?" I asked. "He went to a friend's house. He says he's looking for work, but I don't believe anything he says anymore. I don't know if I'll ever be able to believe him again." I looked into her eyes. This woman who had raised her daughter with so much love, who had worked to maintain the house while her husband lied about everything, who didn't deserve any of what was happening to her. "Rachel," I said, "you and Emma can stay here as long as you need. This house is too big for me alone and your family. Robert, I can't ask you for that. You're not asking me. I'm offering it to you. Sarah adored Emma, and she adored you too. She would have wanted me to take care of you both. Rachel cried harder. But Mike is your brother. Mike chose his path when he decided to lie and defraud. You and Emma aren't to blame for his decisions. That night, Rachel and Emma moved into my house. I set up Emma in the room that Sarah had prepared as an office, the one we had always dreamed would be the baby room we never had. Rachel stayed in the guest room. The first days were strange. The house that had been so empty and silent since Sarah's death was suddenly full of life again. Emma crawled everywhere. Rachel cooked those casseroles I loved so much. There was noise from the TV and laughter. One night, while we were having dinner, Rachel said, "Robert, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you believe Mike's lies? Even for a moment, did you think Sarah had cheated on you?" The question hurt, but she deserved an honest answer.
At first, yes, I admitted.
The letters seemed very real, and Mike seemed so convincing. But then I started noticing inconsistencies, details that didn't match the Sarah I knew. Like what? Well, the letters talked about meetings at hotels in the afternoons, but Sarah worked until 4 and I until 6. There was no time for that. They also mentioned events that had happened differently, dates that didn't match. Rachel nodded. Mike was always bad at remembering details. When he lied to me about small things, he always contradicted himself. Had he lied to you before? Many times. About money he had spent, about where he had been, about what he had done. Never anything as big as this, but now I realize it was a pattern. Why didn't you leave him before? Rachel sighed. Because I had hope he would change. Because I thought it was just stress from work, from responsibilities. And then when we had Emma, I thought being a father would change him. And did it change him? At first it seemed like it did. Mike was a wonderful father. He got up at night to give her bottles, changed her diapers, played with her for hours. But now I wonder if it wasn't just another act. That conversation made me think a lot. Mike had been capable of acting for years. He had been capable of lying to his wife every day for over a year. He had been capable of crying at Sarah's funeral while planning to defame her. What kind of person could do that? 2 weeks later, Mike came to the house. Rachel and Emma were at the park, and I was alone when the doorbell rang. "Robert," he said, when I opened the door, "I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about, Mike. Please. 5 minutes. It's important." I let him in, but didn't invite him to sit. "Robert, I know I screwed up. I know there's no excuse for what I did. But I need help." "What kind of help? Money? A loan? Whatever. The creditors are pressuring me. They're going to foreclose on Rachel's house. If that happens, Emma will be left with nothing." I looked at him incredulously. "Mike, are you seriously asking me for money after everything you did?" "Robert, we're brothers." "No," I interrupted. "You decided we weren't brothers when you invented those lies. Remember, you told me Emma had a right to my inheritance because she was Sarah's daughter, that I owed her half of my house. That was different." "Different how?" "Because now you're the one who needs help." Mike got desperate. "Robert, please. It's not for me. It's for Emma. She's innocent in all this." "Emma is well taken care of," I told him. "She and Rachel are staying here as long as they need. They're my family now." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Rachel is going to divorce you, Mike. And when that happens, I'm going to help her get full custody of Emma. You already showed that you're capable of anything for money, even lying about your own daughter." Mike went white. "Robert, you can't do that to me." "I'm not doing anything to you, Mike. You did this to yourself. Emma is my daughter. I have rights." Emma deserves a father who doesn't lie, who doesn't defraud, who doesn't forge documents. You're not that father." Mike started crying again. "Robert, I'm begging you, give me a chance to fix things." "You already had your chance, Mike. You had it when you lost your job and could have been honest with Rachel. You had it when you started having debts and could have asked for help. You had it when Sarah died and could have been a real brother instead of planning to defraud me. I didn't want it to come to this, but it did, Mike. And now you have to live with the consequences." Mike left that afternoon and never came back. A week later, Rachel received the divorce papers that he had initiated. Apparently, he had decided it was easier to abandon his family than face what he had done. The divorce process was quick. Mike had nothing to claim. Considering all the debts were in his name, Rachel got full custody of Emma. When the papers were ready, Rachel and I went to the cemetery to visit Sarah's grave. "Sarah," I said, "I'm sorry I doubted you, even for a moment. I'm sorry I didn't know how to defend your memory when Mike attacked it. But I want you to know that Rachel and Emma are well taken care of. They're going to be part of my family forever." Rachel put fresh flowers on the grave. "Sarah," she said, "thank you for giving me a brother-in-law who is a better brother than my ex-husband. Emma will grow up knowing she had an aunt who loved her, even though she never met her." That night, when we returned home, Emma was playing in the living room while Rachel prepared dinner. The house felt full of life again, full of love again. "Robert," Rachel said, "can you tell me more things about Sarah? I want Emma to know what her aunt was like." I sat on the couch and Emma crawled over. She grabbed onto my legs to stand up and smiled at me with that smile that reminded me so much of Sarah. "Sarah was the most generous woman in the world," I began. "She was always taking care of everyone. If someone in the family needed something, Sarah appeared with food, with help, with whatever was needed. How would she have behaved with Emma? She would have spoiled her terribly." I laughed. "Sarah always said that aunts were there to spoil their nieces and nephews. She would have bought her toys every day, would have made her all the meals she liked." Emma reached out her little arms to me, and I picked her up. She snuggled against my chest and yawned. "Sarah would have also wanted Emma to have a good education," I continued. "She always said that education was the only thing no one could take away from you." "Then that's what we're going to do," Rachel said. "We're going to raise Emma as Sarah would have wanted, with love, with values, with education. And with family," I added. "With a family that truly loves her, not one that uses her for their own purposes." 6 months later, I legally adopted Emma. Rachel had agreed from the beginning. She wanted Emma to have the stability and security that Mike had never been able to give her. The day of the adoption, we all went to the courthouse. Rachel, Emma, my parents, my aunts. It was like a belated baptism, a celebration of the family that really mattered. Mike never showed up. We had heard he had moved to another city, that he had gotten a job as a salesman, that he had never tried to contact Rachel or Emma. For Emma, I was her Uncle Robert, who lived with them and took care of her. When she was older, Rachel would tell her the truth about her father, but in a way that wouldn't hurt her. One night, almost a year after everything that had happened, I was reading in the living room while Rachel bathed Emma. The phone rang. "Robert?" It was Mike's voice. "What do you want, Mike?" "I wanted to know how Emma is." "Emma is fine. Very well. Can I talk to her?" "No, Mike. Emma is 2 years old. She's not going to understand why her father disappeared from her life for a year and now wants to talk to her." "Robert, I'm her father. You're her father when you're present, when you take care of her, when you put her needs before yours. You chose to leave, Mike. You can't come back when you feel like it." "I've changed, Robert. I have a job. I'm paying my debts. I'm glad for you. But that doesn't change what you did." Can you at least tell her I love her?" I stayed quiet for a moment. Despite everything he had done, Mike was still Emma's biological father. Someday, when she was older, maybe she would want to know him. "Mike," I said, "if you really love Emma, leave her alone. Let her grow up in a stable environment, with people who love her unconditionally. When she's older, if she wants to look for you, it will be her decision. But right now, the best thing you can do for her is not confuse her." Mike cried on the other end of the line. "Will you tell her about me when she's older?" "We're going to tell her the truth, Mike. The whole truth. That she had a father who made very big mistakes, but who loved her in his own way, and that she had a family that loves her unconditionally and will always be there for her. Will you ever forgive me, Robert?" The question took me by surprise. For months I had been so angry with Mike that I hadn't thought about forgiveness. "Mike," I finally said, "what you did almost destroyed my wife's memory. It almost made me doubt the woman I loved for 32 years. It almost hurt an innocent child. I don't know if I'll ever be able to completely forgive you." But I continued, "I do know that I don't hate you anymore. I'm at peace with my life now. I have a family that needs me and that I can take care of. Sarah isn't here, but her love lives on in the way we take care of Emma." "Is that enough for you?" Mike asked. "It's more than I had after Sarah's funeral," I replied. "It's a second chance to be part of a family, to be needed, to love and be loved." After that conversation, Mike never called again. But 6 months later, we received a birthday card for Emma. No message, just signed Daddy Mike. Rachel kept it in a box, along with all the photos she had of Mike with Emma when she was a baby. Someday, when Emma was older, she could decide what to do with those memories. Now Emma is 5 years old. She calls me Uncle Robert, but I act more like her father than her uncle. I go to her plays at kindergarten. I take her to the doctor when she's sick. I read her stories before bed. Rachel and I never talk about having a romantic relationship, but we're a family in all the ways that matter. Sometimes I think about Sarah and what our life would have been like if she had lived. We probably would have continued being just the two of us, growing old together in our quiet house. But I also think Sarah would have loved having Rachel and Emma in our lives. She always wanted our house to be full of love and laughter. The house where Mike tried to defraud me is now full of Emma's drawings on the refrigerator, toys in the living room, little shoes at the entrance. It's the house that Sarah and I bought as a young couple, where I'm aging as a single father of a girl who isn't my biological daughter, but who is my daughter in all the ways that matter. Mike lost much more than money with his lies. He lost his wife's trust, his daughter's love, his family's respect. He lost the chance to be the father Emma deserved, the husband Rachel needed. But I gained something I never expected to have after Sarah's death. I gained a second family, a second chance to love and be loved, a reason to get up every morning that isn't just pain. When Emma asks me why I don't have a wife like her friends' dads, I tell her my wife was an angel who now takes care of us from heaven. And when she asks why her daddy Mike doesn't live with us, Rachel tells her that sometimes daddies have to work very far away, but that she has an Uncle Robert who loves her as if he were her dad. Someday we're going to have to tell her the whole truth. About Mike's lies, about the divorce, about why we decided it was better for her to grow up without him. But for now, she's a happy child who believes all families are like ours. An uncle who acts like a dad, a mom who works hard to take care of her, and an angel in heaven who protects them. Sometimes, on quiet nights after Emma falls asleep, Rachel and I sit in the living room drinking coffee and talking about our days. It's in those moments when I feel Sarah is with us, when I feel she approves of the family we've built after Mike tried to destroy everything. Mike thought he could take advantage of my pain to steal my inheritance. He didn't know that what he would really achieve was giving me the opportunity to build something better than what I had before. He didn't know that his lies would end up uniting the people who really loved each other and separating those who only wanted to hurt each other. The $800,000 house that Mike coveted so much is now worth much more than that. Not in money, but in a child's laughter running through the hallways, in nighttime conversations in the kitchen, in hugs after nightmares, in Sunday afternoons watching movies on the couch. Sarah died without knowing that Mike was going to betray her in such a horrible way. But she also died without knowing that betrayal would end up bringing me the family she and I never could have. If I could talk to her now, I think she would tell me that everything happened as it was supposed to happen, that Emma and Rachel came into my life at the exact moment I needed them. And maybe she's right. Maybe Sarah, from wherever she is now, orchestrated everything, so I wouldn't be left alone. Maybe Mike's lies were part of a bigger plan that none of us could see at the time. What I do know is this. Mike thought he was taking something away from me, but he was actually giving me everything. He gave me a daughter I love as if she were mine, a companion who understands pain and loss, a house full of life again. In the end, the sweetest revenge was realizing I didn't need to get revenge. Mike had avenged himself. He had lost everything that really mattered for something that was never his. And I had gained something I could never lose. A family built on true love, not on lies or convenience. Now when Emma hugs me before sleep and says, "I love you, Uncle Robert," I know Sarah is smiling from somewhere. I know she understands that true love always finds a way to win, no matter how many lies try to destroy it. And that's the lesson I'm going to teach Emma when she's older, that family isn't defined by blood or legal papers, but by the people who love you when you have nothing to offer in return. That the most powerful revenge against lies is living in truth. A few weeks ago, Emma started kindergarten. The first day, when the teacher asked each child to talk about their family, Emma stood up and said, "I live with my mom Rachel and my Uncle Robert. My daddy Mike works very far away, but my Uncle Robert takes care of me like he's my dad, and I have an Aunt Sarah who is an angel in heaven." When Rachel told me that, my eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of a happiness I didn't know I could feel after losing Sarah. That same night, while I was putting Emma to bed, she asked me, "Uncle Robert, do you think Aunt Sarah can see me from heaven?" "I'm sure she can, my love," I replied. "And is she happy with how we are a family?" I hugged her tighter. "Emma, I think Aunt Sarah is more than happy. I think she's proud." Emma smiled and closed her eyes. "When I grow up, I want to be like Aunt Sarah. I want to take care of my family." "You're already doing it, Emma," I whispered. "You're already doing it." Outside it was starting to rain, but inside the house, everything was warm and quiet. Rachel was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for the next day, as she did every night. I was putting to bed the girl who had become my daughter in everything but name, and somewhere, I'm sure, Sarah was watching us with that smile of hers that always told me everything was going to be okay. Mike had thought that destroying Sarah's memory would give him what he wanted, but all he accomplished was showing us how much love Sarah had left in our lives, how much love we still had to give. In the end, that was her revenge against him, that his lies gave us the family he never knew how to value, that his betrayal united us more than his loyalty ever had. When I close my eyes and think about everything that happened since that horrible birthday, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. Gratitude because Mike's lies showed me who my real family was. Gratitude because pain taught me to value true love. Gratitude because Sarah's death wasn't the end of my love story, but the beginning of a new one. Emma sleeps now, in the room Sarah had dreamed. For the child we never had, Rachel sleeps peacefully, knowing her daughter is safe and loved. And I sleep knowing that Sarah, wherever she is smiling. because the house we shared for 32 years is still full of love. Mike lost everything for $400,000 that were never his. We gained something priceless, a family built on true love, honesty, and the promise that we'll always be there for each other. That's the real inheritance Sarah left us. Not money, not properties, but the ability to love unconditionally, to forgive without forgetting, to build something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. And when Emma is older and has to face her own betrayals, her own pain, I hope she remembers this story. I hope she remembers that true love always finds a way to win, that real family never abandons you, and that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as the most painful betrayals. Sarah, my love, if you're listening, mission accomplished. I took care of Emma as I promised. I took care of Rachel as you would have wanted. And I found a way to keep loving you through the love I give them. Mike thought he was going to destroy me. What he didn't know is that he was going to give me the opportunity to build something even more beautiful than what we had before. And that, in the end, was my perfect revenge, being happier after his betrayal than I had been before, knowing his true intentions.